Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
With my co-host, Karen Christine Patrick, and Reverend John Polk. And today we have a very interesting guest for our listeners, Mary Sutherland. And Karen, are you there, please?
Oh, I certainly am.
Okay, would you like to read Mary's bio?
I would love to. Mary Sutherland is an author and researcher focusing her work on consciousness studies, ancient history, and unusual phenomenon. She is a hands-on researcher and the creator of one of the largest websites on the internet with hundreds of pages providing information on the paranormal, UFOs, ancient races and their cultures, sacred sites and power points of the world, underground tunnels, cave systems, dimensional worlds, metaphysics, etc. I can attest to that. I was looking on her website. There's a lot there, people. Let's see. The governor of Kentucky commissioned her as a Kentucky colonel for her work on the ancient sites of Kentucky. For the last 6 years, she's been exploring, mapping, and documenting the ancient underwater structures of Rock Lake near Sutherland. For the last 16 years, she's been documenting the ancient sites around Burlington, Wisconsin. Truth is her passion. She believes it is through truth that we will break ourselves free of our present entanglements in life. When we become free, we will create our own personal story of the hero's journey as suggested by Joseph Campbell. And there's a nice quote. There are rare persons in this world who see things others don't. Persons who connect the dots of existence and possess an instinctive talent for linking with kindred souls to reveal otherwise invisible patterns and excavate hidden truths. Such a person is Mary Sutherland. She's a natural-born networker in all she does, from her Burlington Vortex conferences and the Sci-Fi Cafe to her public talks and published books. And I believe that was by Frank Joseph. Mary Sutherland is not simply a reporter of all these phenomena. She lives them, as readers expect. Her studies extend beyond her own experiences. The author and investigator often take visitors on tours containing an interdimensional vortex and hosts yearly conferences and meetups with many well-known speakers on anomalous phenomenon. That's fantastic. And that's from her website, the www.burlingtonnews.net. So that's why we had her on here today. She also has a Facebook group, which is one of the places where I got to know her work. Welcome, Mary.
Oh, wait 1 second. Before we bring on Mary, I want to bring on John. So, John, I think you get on. No, you're live. John, welcome to the show. And what would you like to say before we bring Mary on?
I just wanted to say that I'm very excited about this interview this evening, as I've come in direct contact here in the 3D Earth plane with blue beings, and between Karen Christine Patrick's life partner and research partner, Brett Colin Shepard, and Mary Sutherland, there is a deep and vast history of blue beings existing on this planet that has not received the attention that it deserves, and that will all be unearthed here this evening, and I look forward to it.
Wonderful. And Mary Sutherland, welcome to our show. How are you this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, we're all delighted to have you here. What part of the world do you hail from? Where are you?
Right now, we're living in Winslow, Illinois. And for the last 16 years, I was living in Burlington, which is just about a 2-hour drive from here. So I still do my tours in Burlington and still do a lot of my research there in that area. And
what do you mean by your tours? What kind of tours do you do?
The tours, the tours are we call them the haunted wood tours. That was when I first started out, and so I didn't know that much about the paranormal. I was like most people. Everything was, it was, if something couldn't be understood, it had to be paranormal. It had to be haunted. It had to have ghosts. So I gave it the name Haunted Woods. But as the years have gone through, I've realized that they're more of a mystical forest where many, many things happen. There's the major ley line across right through in the Burlington area, causing this this spark. A spark that causes like tears in the fabric of reality that we know it, and which creates portals, so that or doorways into the other dimensions, thus allowing entities to come through and visit with us, to be able to go through and visit with them. So, and there's time warps up there. We also have a family of Bigfoot living up there. We also have a kingdom up there of blue people.
Oh.
And we had this one woman. Her name is Atala Dorothy Toy. And she's very good at what she does, very well known in this area. And she was the one that actually pointed out these doorways into these the Blue People's kingdoms, and also told me that the princess.
Are you on a headphone, or would you get on a headphone? You're fading in and out, Mary, or maybe just I'm not sure what's going on. You're on
I'm having a hard time hearing you, too. I'm talking as close to the phone as possible, so I don't know what's going on. But anyhow, she told me about the blue people that had been wanting to visit with me up in the woods. And that's when I realized that is because of these woods and me going through these portals and, and past these kingdoms. That was the reasoning behind a subconscious reason behind my fascination with blue people. And it was probably my inspiration for all the writing I have done on the blue people. But anyhow, we take people up there, and I try to help them. I work kind of like a conduit for people in the woods. I bring people up there. I help them see through my mind, of the woods and the entities within, and how to communicate with them. And then the woods itself, it's like the woods and these entities. They kind of work through me to teach these people how to appreciate all the things that's going on around them, even though sometimes and many times that they cannot see them. And I use my camera to be able to photograph these invisible entities and which includes jinn, spirits. We photograph leprechauns, trolls, fairies, and people actually stepping out of their bodies, etherically stepping out of their bodies and going into the other dimensions. I have a camera that can actually photograph them not only in the third dimension, but in various higher dimensions. And so the people, once they see it, once people see it with, you know, the pictures, it if they weren't believers before, they are believers after they see the pictures.
Where might one find your pictures? Are they on your Facebook
if
page?
If people want to go and join, well, the best way to do it is go to facebook.com/groups/Mary Sutherland, one word.
Okay.
And from there, they can go, or they can just go to facebook.com/Sci-Fi Cafe, or just go on to Facebook and look up Mary Sutherland. I'm the one with the long hair and the red sweater. But once they get in there, click on photos, and a page opens up. From there, they can click on to albums and spend hours looking at all my pictures of people face shifting into the other dimensions, and jinns and Bigfoots, and the blue people, everything. And it'll take them days to probably go through it all.
Wow. Okay, I'm on your site, your Facebook page group, and I've just asked to join. Hopefully you'll approve me. And I'm going to go and take a look at that while we're talking.
Before you, hold on just 1 second, though.
Sure.
Now, when you're in the Facebook group section, there is the albums, and I do have a lot of pictures, but most of my pictures are going to be sitting in the Facebook /Sci-Fi Cafe. But right at this point in time, I've got my 5,000 limit, and I got 1,000 people sitting back waiting, on a waiting list to get in there. So I just tell everybody at this point in time, go into groups, and then when I see you go into groups, leave me a message that you want to see my photos, and I'll get you onto that site where you can see all my albums.
Okay. Well, I'm sure since we're talking about it, especially people are going to want to see this. So, however you can make it happen, let's, you're probably going to get a lot of people wanting to do this. And it's going to go into the archives so people will be listening along the line.
Right.
I'm sure you get a lot of people all on your own, too, because this is a fascinating subject that you're covering. So we're talking about the blue people, and then I'm noticing that you have books on the red-haired giants.
Well, I have a 5-book series, and it's In Search of Ancient Man, and I've got 4 of the books done. The last one will be coming out next year, and one is. I got to remember all my books. I actually got 7. Well, the best way to do it for my books is actually go to burlingtonnews.net/books, BOOKS. And that will take you right onto my site where I have all my books. I have like 7 books right now out. And you can also find my books on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or even go to the library.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I'm going to pass the talking stick to the next person because we're going to have a lot of questions for you, Mary. This is fascinating. Who wants to go next, Karen or John?
I'd like to go. I titled the show as we were working on it, Giant Blue People and Secret Society. So I hope we get all that in there. And just about your book, The Red-Haired Giants, this has been interesting to me about the giants that were seen and known about in North America, because a lot of times, we end up talking about the Middle East or Europe or something like that. Or even our folklore often comes from the European, giant stories that there are in the Bible, giant stories that there are. But there are giant stories in North America, and it's very, very significant. It's a lot of folklore from the Native Americans, and most people don't know these were red-haired, were they blue-eyed, white skin also, and they were huge, and they were quite the menace actually to the natives. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Well, and you're correct that until I started bringing focus back here to North America, most of the researchers were focusing all their work on researching giants from other countries. And, and you've always heard the story that North America is the New World, and they're still arguing about who discovered, quote, discovered America first. Was it the Vikings, the ancient Celts? Was it the Europeans? And you'll hear people talking about that the Native Americans were the first people here. And you'll hear about them crossing over the Bering Strait. Well, the Bering Strait theory has been proven wrong. But even though it's been proven wrong, people still use it. They use wrong data. But if you think about it, okay, and I tell everybody, just quit listening to people out there tell you something. Use your head. Use plain common sense. People have always been here in North America. Always. Animals have always been here. You'll hear people saying, well, there was never horses here until, the Spanish brought them over. And then they explain all the other animals being here because somehow they were able to cross the Bering Strait, and they eventually ended up in North America. Well, no, that's not true. Because if you just plain think about it, every place in the world have been noted to have a civilization with animals. Canada had a civilization. Alaska had civilization of people. Mexico had civilization. The South America had a civilization. And and they've actually gotten people to think that this huge, huge continent of North America sat here totally vacant of people and animals. And with this great big old Mississippi River starting up in up there in the Great Lakes area, that takes them all, that takes the traveler, on by boat all the way on down to the Gulf of Mexico. So why would North America have been empty of civilizations? And they wasn't. Common sense alone tells you that they're not. So I say to myself, okay, well, if the Indians weren't the original people, because we already know through, DNA, blood testing, and things like that they could. There's a lot of the Indians that carry the blood of the Chinese and the Hun and various European. Okay. So that shows that the Indians, the Native Americans that we have today, is a combination of a people that was bred into another people and creating this race that we have today.
Right.
So and even the Native Americans, when you ask them their stories about when the Europeans first came over here, they were seeing these beautiful pyramids and temples and waterways and roadways and all that. And they'd go to the Indians and they'd say, "Who built these? They're beautiful. They're magnificent. Who built them?"
Mm-hmm.
The Indians always said, "We don't know. It was a race of people that was here prior to us." And they described those people as white-skinned, Caucasian giants.
Mm-hmm.
So what everybody's hearing out there is wrong. There were giants and tall people too, living here in North America at the same point of time that there was people living in Egypt and in China, in Mongolia, in South America, in Alaska. This whole world was inhabited with people. North America did not sit here barren, as they try to tell us.
Okay, let me pause you right there, Mary, because Karen has a question and I have a question. Go ahead, Karen.
Sure.
I heard you go.
Okay, so I know somewhat about the discoveries in the mound building culture, where they were finding skeletons that were like 9 to 12 to possibly even 14 feet tall, and that these there is anywhere that you can see a skeleton of this in any of our museums. I mean, you can see mummies from Egypt, but you can't see this in our museums. But I mean, what sizes were we talking? Was it between 9 to 12 feet tall, or were there even ones bigger than that?
Oh, sure, there was ones bigger than that. Those are the ones. Now, the book that I have out, Red-Haired Giants, they pretty much focus on the red-haired giants of, 10, 12, even up 14 foot. Now, the book that I have out now, right, is Giants, Gods, and Lost Races. That book more focuses in, got a little tongue-tied there, focuses more on all of the giants. And let me explain. This would be a good way to explain this, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's just take it right back to Genesis. And it explains, that the Adam and Eve were, created, in the image of God, and that their job was to procreate and to be the caretakers of this earth. Right? They were above the animals, above everything, right? And but now let's take this back all the way back to the dinosaurs, and let's take back to the Jurassic period. Now we know that man was here in North America walking with dinosaurs because we have footprints at in Texas. I can't remember right now. It's Polka. There's a river down there in Texas. We probably one of your panels know the names of it, but I can't think of it right now. But we have fossil or footprints down there. But we also have found footprints of human giant footprints walking with dinosaurs in Arizona. And there's various places now that they have found these giant footprints walking with, next to dinosaur footprints here in North America. Mm-hmm. So going back with Genesis and taking it back to the Jurassic period, and then again taking it back to plain old common horse sense. A God or the Creator, whatever you want to call, whoever you follow, had created all the animals, all the birds, all the insects, all the vegetation, everything in gigantic proportion, such as he did back in the Jurassic period. Why on earth would he have made man 5 foot tall?
Right.
And so what we're looking at, and of course we know that he didn't make them 5 foot tall because we've seen and measured these footprints next to the dinosaurs prints.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if there was a time, the gravity was different, there was a higher content of oxygen, so naturally everything grew very, tall and large.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and we see it today. We have things that were, like the birds in the Jurassic period. They have downsized to the size of the birds that we have today. The whales, the crocodiles. They've all downsized, and so did man. So we're looking at one time. You're looking at maybe man at 60, 80 foot tall. But then as time went by, you read about man, and this is the one I generally focus on. Well, actually it went all the way to the Greek period, I believe it was, that you were still seeing men, humans or men, that were 60 foot tall, even 80. And then later on, then it went down to 30 foot, then 20 foot, and then during the Bronze Age period, or the mound builder period, that most of us researchers are focusing on here in North America, you're still seeing people 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, some even 14 foot. And we know, and we're still, even yet today, you're still seeing people that are like your football players, your basketball players, that are, 7 foot. And we've found people that are even 8 foot tall, 8 foot plus tall. And why is that? Because it's a recessive gene from these giants from before. Because these giants, and we know it's a recessive gene because of the fact that the giants were always described as having double rows of teeth, 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes on each foot. And yet today we're still having people born with double rows of teeth, and many times an extra finger, 6 fingers on their hand and 6 toes on their feet. So we're still seeing we're still seeing that recessive gene. We're seeing the recessive gene in the blue people with there's a family down in Kentucky that, as long as they're breeding in the same family, their babies were being born blue. And that's a recessive gene. You have a recessive gene with the little people of today. Because at one point in time, even when the giants were here, there was also what you'll hear Native American stories about the little people, and they generally only stood maybe anywhere between 2. I mean, they were perfect. They wasn't like dwarfs. I mean, they were perfectly formed, but they only got 2 to 3 foot tall. Cherokee has, the Cherokee tribes have a lot of stories on the blue people, but anyhow, and these little people. And so even today, you see people born as little people.
Mary, can I interject and ask a couple questions here?
Sure.
Because you just really sparked my curiosity. Okay, so one thing that came to me, I'm an Anunnaki researcher, so one of my questions is, do you think these giant people were the Anunnaki? They had a global society, they were connected, and they were supposed to be, 10, 12, 13, 14 feet high. So that was one of my questions.
Yeah.
And then related to that, then there was the flood. Do you think that this, becoming smaller and smaller it was just two parts. Was part of it the genetic manipulation by the Anunnaki or other space-faring races, and was part of it the influence of what happened during the flood and the changes to the Earth after it repositioned itself after the flood?
Right. Okay, gotcha. Anunnaki came from a different planet. Okay, so Anunnaki was not human. Anunnaki, as far as everything we have seen, shows them to be, 20 foot tall, something like that, maybe even 30, And we do know that what they did is they manipulated the genes. Well, first of all, how did they do it? They used their women, and the egg of the woman injected the sperm of the man, was it? I know that somehow they were able to use the eggs of the female Anunnaki as to create birth mothers, and birth giants, right? And there was it Enki? No, yeah, right. Enki was the one Enki that was working. Right? Yeah. And so
Enki was the geneticist with Nimma and Nikishita. The three of them were co-creators. The primary chief scientist in the project was Nimma. And
and even in the Sumerian text, in the Sumerian text they even talk about it. They found, but they were using different species of Earthlings in their experimentations. And one of the ones that I found the most interesting was this human that Enki referred to as the wild, hairy. How did he say it? The wild, hairy man of the forest.
Yeah, Bigfoot. Yeah.
Which and they called that tribe of people Enkidu. And so I think that so that's where I'm kind of playing around with it right now, is trying to figure out. I am sure that Enkidu, that species of man, was here prior to the Anunnaki arriving. And we also know that there was a lot of species of mankind here prior to the arrival of Anunnaki, but they were erased off the face of the earth during the flood. So there's going to be a lot, there's a lot of different species of men that they may have been using to create the Adamic man that we will never know about. But the one that we do know about goes right back to Enkidu. And and we know that the Anunnaki created their own race of beings, or of people, and I always refer to them as the Adamic man. But they also called them Lulus, which I thought was kind of interesting, because even today we use the word Lulu, but that's usually to refer to a mistake.
Right.
So I always want
to pass the talking stick to John. I'm sure he has something that he wants to focus on. Go ahead, John.
A couple comments and then a couple questions. Was the river, Mary, that you were talking about in Texas called the Rio Grande?
No.
No. Okay.
It was no.
Okay, different river.
The Pulucas. I can't. It was P-U-L or something. I just can't think of it.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sure that somebody on the panel or one of your listeners is going to pick up on it really fast and say, "Well, you idiots out there, you don't even know what you're talking about. Don't even know the name of that river."
It's Paluxy, Paluxy River.
Paluxy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, the Paluxy River in Texas.
And then, of course, there's the Ica stones in Peru where, there was close to 10,000 of them, and on a number of them you can see actually humans riding them as if they were domesticated animals.
And they also domesticated the mammoth.
Yes, yeah.
And they would herd them up and like cattle, and a lot of the prairies that you find, like when you're going into like down in Kentucky, well, you have a lot of forests, and then all of a sudden there's just like this one big area that there's just no trees or anything growing, like a little prairie. I found a book on ancient Kentucky, and it was actually sponsored by the Smithsonian. And the guy that wrote the book, he said that those prairies were actually made by when they had domesticated the mammoth, because the mammoth would eat tear the trees down and everything. And wherever they herded these animals, you would find these bare spaces.
Yeah, I've read about that as well. And something I wanted to comment also on is, so the argument that, archaeology and modern-day anthropologists will try and spin at the giant theory is, where are all the bones? Well, one thing I do know is the collective governments, individually and separate from other governments, and then also collectively, whenever they happen upon these bones and these skeletons, they don't share this information with the public.
Absolutely
they try and hide it, bury it as much as possible. There's been recently, in the last 10 years, a lot found in Turkey and that part of the world where it leaked out, and then it was, stomped. It was squashed.
Yep.
It came out. It was on the news or whatever. You never heard of it again. Produced the bones. Well, it was, it was just a hoax anyway. But the one thing that is happening is these stories are coming from all four corners of the globe. So, it can't be, just a big fat lie. It's basically just disinformation. What they're putting out, they're trying to turn it into a hoax and make it look like it's just a bunch of hooey. That's really an insult to researchers like yourself who've invested, perhaps decades, or I would have to assume decades on this research. And without physical evidence, you can really just go by your research.
Actually, I just, in my group, I have evidence. I actually do have artifacts. I have a ton of them because I used to have the Sci-Fi Cafe and Earth Mysteries Museum. And, of course, I'm out there, I'm a hands-on researcher. I meet other researchers. I go to some of these forbidden archaeologist meetings. And so right at this point in time, because of the fact that just for what you said, I have decided I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm putting up my pictures of all the artifacts I have, as well as the pictures of artifacts that I have come across, showing tools and various petrified body parts and things of giants the public has never seen before, and I'm putting them out on my group. I just started. I put out one set last night, as a matter of fact, and I explained to the people the reason I was doing it is because I'm just tired of all these people saying, well, there's just no evidence. Well, I'm going to put out the evidence, and come what may, I'm tired of it, because there is a lot of people that have come across. It's not just the archaeologists that have come across a lot of these artifacts. There's people like me, that's out there, and we're in these sacred site areas, and and we're digging around and checking this out and checking this out, and we find things. But we've had to be very, very careful all the way through these years because, we didn't want the government or archaeologists or anybody coming in and taking them from us. But I've just gotten to the point where, no, I'm done being afraid. I'm going to get them out for people to see. And I've got some amazing things.
Excellent.
Well, good. I'm inspired by that whole thing because, like, that's.
Well, I'm hoping if I do it, then other researchers that forbidden archaeologists will see what I've done, and they'll start following, taking my lead on it and start putting out their stuff too.
That's tremendous. And then going back to the Bering Strait, I saw a documentary with a number of different Indian tribes, Pueblo tribes, Southwest American tribes, Hopi, Zuni, Aztec, Cherokee, and they were saying how they're insulted by historians say that they came across the Bering Strait and literally brought animals across the Bering Strait to Alaska and then migrated south through Canada into the desert Southwest. And to them, they actually believe that they came from inside inner Earth, perhaps from even a different dimension into this world after the last ice age and things like that. And
right.
I'm sure you have plenty of knowledge on that as well.
Yes, and it's a fact. There was people, and the people that did come here, the explorers, they bred into the men, or into the women that were already here, and that's what you have today for Indians.
Okay, one final question before I pass the stick is, can you tell us where these different giants come from? I mean, like specifically what planet and what race?
I think that
they might be.
I think these were the original people.
Okay.
Just as the dinosaurs were.
So they didn't come from anywhere. They were indigenous to this planet before they tweaked our genetics. Is that what you are saying?
As far as I can see, that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And if you go into Sumerian texts and you read, actually, if you just buy my book, I have several chapters of just exactly how this came down and how they were finding these the people of Earth and using splicing the gene into the splicing into the egg of the Anunnaki woman to produce these various humanoids. And I think that and they didn't stop at just the humans. They were using the apes, the giant apes. They were using. You see this in the Egyptian stories, where there's like Anubis, with the head of the jackal, and there was actually so they'd come out half human and half animal, and we've gotten to that point right now that we're doing that in genetics. I mean, the government's not coming out and saying we're using humans, but they're using humans, and and splicing the genes with an animal to see what they can come up with. They're doing it more so in Europe than they are here in the United States, because in the United States, I guess there's a law about it, but in Europe, they're pretty well protected, and they can actually run these experiments. But I think how I heard it, after the baby is born, they can only allow it to live for a couple weeks, and they have to destroy it. But I don't buy into that story, because I'm sure that they want to see how it develops. But in my book, I actually have the old Jewish laws of these how like with babies being born that's half human and half animal, what the laws are concerning abortions and allowing them to live, what they considered as human and what they considered as a non-human. I think that's in my.
Makes sense. We have it in the Sumerian. They were doing all these different experiments, the Minotaurs and all the different mermaids, merpeople. So they were doing a lot of experiments, and then we do see this period in Egyptian culture where and we're saying, oh, they're wearing masks. maybe not. You know, and then you do have stories in like India. You have Hanuman, who is part monkey, and Ganesh.
Right.
So we sit there and we say these are myths, but I think these were genetic experiments throughout the ages, just like we are experimenting, and we're using DNA from, you know, we're making cats that glow in the dark, right? So
I totally
anything.
agree with you.
Yeah.
You know,
interesting.
and a thing that, because I've been like, you know, I've been around Bigfoot for a long time, for maybe about 10 years, but I never, you know, really got serious about doing any research. I knew they were out there, and I've had the rock thrown, and I've heard them and things like that, but I just really started getting serious about researching them after I had my first practically a head-on collision with a Bigfoot 2 years ago. And see, Bigfoot, there's you hear about these stories about these humans, these giants that they found with the elongated skulls. There's a lot of these skulls that they're finding in Peru right now with the elongated skull with red hair. Well, they've also found that same type of a skull right here in Wisconsin. And so we know that the elongated skull was here.
There was a report about 6-7 years ago that they found red-headed giants on Haleakala here in Maui, Hawaii. And then someone that got back to me said they immediately, they was in a cave, and they immediately filled in the cave with cement. So they took away whatever it was. So they're just hiding it,
Yeah, I kind of always wondered about that story because it's like if these entrances to these caves were, if not really that big, I've always been curious about how they ran these 20-foot giants into these caves. But
these giants were supposed to be more like the 12 feet. I mean, really, if you have anything over 10 feet tall. There's very few. I don't know. What's the tallest human that we have in our modern society on record?
I think it's something like 14.2.
We do have that tall as being born to a human female, and then they might grow with giantism. You know, that pineal gland. It's like a genetic defect or something.
That's just a name they've given it. You know, it's like when you go to the doctor's office and, you know, and you've got something wrong with you, you know, and they can't figure it out, and pretty soon they start feeling kind of foolish because everybody's coming into the doctor's office having the same symptoms, and so they'll put some name on, says, oh, yeah, you got this. We got a pill for that right now. So, yeah, you take this, and it should go away after a certain length of time. If it doesn't come back, we'll take more of your money. But that's why I don't like tags, you know. Tags, you know, trying to tag, you know. I believe that the giants that are born today, I don't think that they suffer from any sort of a disease so much, except for the fact that because of the heaviness of the gravity we have today and the thinness of the, the not as much oxygen in the air, you know, they start having problems, you know, with their growth.
Yeah.
And because that's, you know, when the giants were here before, the gravity wasn't so bad, so it wasn't pulling on their skeletal structure like it does today.
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, the story is, and we can never verify the story, is that when they have that giantism, they don't live very long. So, but I don't have every story.
And it could be that they don't live very long because it would be difficult for these giants. But of course, then you go back to Bigfoot, you know, and you know they're talking about seeing. Well, even Bigfoot, I don't think gets much more than 12 foot.
Right.
You know, depending on the area, but they are usually about 8-9 foot. But when I was talking about these elongated skulls, if you ever notice a lot of these Bigfoot, there's several different types of Bigfoot out there. Some are just like giants, giant hairy men with a more of a rounded head. But then there's also another giant here in Wisconsin area, in Michigan, that is red hair with the elongated skull. And so with, like I said, I've only been researching this for maybe 2 years now, but I'm kind of thinking that maybe the Bigfoot that we're seeing today wasn't part of some sort of genocide, because the Indians talk about wiping out all these giants, and I'm thinking that maybe some of them may have escaped, went down into the cave systems, and stayed down there, and evolved, and evolved according to the environment, thus. Through multiple generations, because they're not wearing clothes and they don't have electric heat and all that stuff like we do, they evolved to have hair all over their body and nice thick hair over their body, and that hair is to keep the bugs off of them. Maybe it works as a cooling system, and it keeps them warm in the winter. But but that's what I'm thinking, is that these red-haired giants that I wrote about in my book may have ended up as what we're seeing today, that we're calling the Bigfoot. With the red hair and the elongated skull. And then there was the other ones with the rounded head, and because they're really making a comeback lately. More and more people are saying that.
I wonder if they're the same species, meaning that they can breed through copulation rather than cloning or genetic manipulation. There's a story in Alma.
They can, because I have a story in Giants, Gods, and Lost Races, and it tells about Alma, where she was a Bigfoot that they captured, took down into their town, and just put that poor thing through hell all of her life. Made her as a slave, and raped her, and she ended up with, I think, 3 children, maybe. And being raped by the village men. So now that's natural breeding.
That she had 6
Was it 6?
But she only she was taking them down as the newborns and washing them in the cold river. So her children can take the cold, like you were saying, but since they were half, and so they finally stopped them, and then now there are descendants of the 2 or 3 that survived to have successive generations. So there's actually we don't. Now, we do have this one woman, a Genesis, that actually did a genetic profile of a Bigfoot and found that through DNA, and found that on the mother was, how do they say it? The mother was. The father, they couldn't trace the father at all, and the mother was, was an unknown species here on Earth. But I thought to myself, actually, you really don't even need, as far as the Bigfoot goes, you really, based on Alma, you really don't even need DNA testing, because that's natural breeding. And a species outside another species can't breed into another or that species. Right.
Like a cat can't breed a dog.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we do have horses breeding a mule, and a mule can have a baby mule, but the mules are always sterile, so a mule can't breed again, right? They have to be bred back into a horse. But so it's a natural breeding process, to keep other species from breeding into, and I should say procreating, because you'll see a dog jump a cat, but I mean you don't have babies from it. But you can have babies from the breeding of a human and a Bigfoot. And to me, that says everything. That tells me that Bigfoot is a species of human.
Right. I agree.
So in science, an anthropologist and archaeologists, they better catch up. People are smarter today, and we got the internet, and we're talking back and forth. It's a time of instant communication, and these guys are looking pretty ignorant. They're basing their work on books, that they were taught by, in these schools that were trying to push their own agendas, and their theories their theories are laughable. It's just like us that are studying, it's not just me as a researcher, it's you and everybody out there that's sitting on on their computers, and they're reading about this and this and this. We get it. It's pretty obvious to me, and to everybody else what's going on. And the scientists, they're like 20 years behind the times. So it's either they hurry up and get on the train and get with it, or the train's moving down the track and they're going to be left behind. My personal opinion.
Karen, let's let Karen ask questions. I can see her. She's across the planet with her hands up. I always see her.
She always does. No, originally, the first thing that I kind of made me want to interview you, Mary, was about a secret society thing. And I want to make sure it ties in with what we're talking about, the blue people and the giants. So my original question I'm going to put aside for a minute, because it's interesting to me in talking about giants or other people, blue people, leprechauns, whatever, how we do seem to have this intelligentsia to make sure, literally to bury the bodies or to put them in a cave, or they found giants near Santa Catalina Island, California. They took them out and put them on barges, put the skeleton on barges and dumped them out in the sea. So, who are these people and why are they doing this? What's their agenda? And I know it ties in with secret societies, and I know the Smithsonian has even admitted that they got rid of 1,500 giant species of, skeletons from the mound builder culture. I mean, who are these people? Not just the ones that are just reading the other guy's academic paper. You know what I mean?
Right. I think originally, like with the Masons, now the Masons go all the way back to the days of Solomon, right? And I think originally it was all started to protect this information, this forbidden information, because this information is, it's information on how to open up doorways, how to create a human. It's things that are very, very powerful, and if it gets into the wrong hands, it could be very, very destructive. So, and of course, whoever had this type of information was the ones that carried the power of the world. They were looked at as gods, and so there was a point in time that there were groups that were trying to destroy all that information, destroy the history and recreate history, which they actually did a pretty good job of that one. But anyhow, and destroy all the books. the scientific discoveries, destroyed the medicines, and how to do surgery, all that. And so originally this was all taken and hidden underground or in caves or in safe places to protect it for, and the only ones that really had access to it then ended up as the priest. And then from there it went to the point that they took all that information and they abused it. And it brought in, so even today there's secret societies out there that are very, very bad, and there's other secret societies that's actually very, very good. And there's always a struggle going on between them of who is going to have all this power, all this knowledge. And so, and so that's what the purpose of the secret societies were. They would pass information on. They would give, like a secret societies. They had certain handshakes to know who was one of their brothers, who was in their in their organization, so that they could speak to them. They could talk about all this hidden information. And, so that they, and the Native Americans did the same thing. They would take this information and they would pass it on through stories, and the Greeks did, with their Greek mythology. So there was always somebody there from these secret societies that was kind of working for the good, trying to keep people, civilize people and, get them out of the days of darkness, and that had to remain secret, otherwise they'd been killed. And then, of course, there was the other ones, like I said, that were secret societies because they were abusing the power. And
I think that goes hand in hand with the theory of the Anunnaki and that there were different factions. And people today still talk about, they say, the Anunnaki are reptilians and they're archons and they're good or they're bad. But I would say it's more complicated than that. There's different factions. Just like the extraterrestrials, just like humans. You have people that are more Christ-like and people are more Hitler-like. So, we need to stop just labeling everybody and realize that it's very complicated.
It's like the Masons. Part of their oath is to maintain these secrets for the betterment of humankind. Mm-hmm. And and there's the love of the country, love of brother and sister. To always make sure that you help your neighbor. That's the original part of the oath of the Masons. But then there was people that branched off from that, like your Skulls and Bones. And we know what the Skulls and Bones do. I mean, it's all about the money. It's all about greed, So so a lot of people will say, this guy's a Mason. He's 33-degree Mason. Well, okay, he's 33-degree Mason. Well, does that make him a good? People will say, that makes him really bad. No, it doesn't make him bad. It's what he does with that information, and is he using it for the good, and the betterment of our future. So we kind of got to look at everyone, on an individual basis. It's kind of like our neighbors. I might have a good neighbor on one side, but, a devil neighbor on the other side, But so we can't tag people so much, and put them all in one little box and, say, secret society, all bad. No, that's not how it works. But they are keepers of the secrets. And if it hadn't been for them, we would probably not even be here where we are today.
Okay, before I pass the talking stick, I just want your opinion on the Smithsonian, because it sounds to me like you made a decision. I mean, like if you get a UFO report, do you send it to MUFON? If you've got a artifact do you send it to the Smithsonian? It sounds like you feel that it's better if independent researchers share what they have because there's been some problems. And what's your opinion of the Smithsonian?
I have heard way too.
Right?
Yeah, I've heard way too many stories from people that have sent their artifacts from Smithsonian, and they've never been seen again. They get lost. And no, I would not. I have like artifacts here, and people contact me and say, "Oh my, you have got to send to an archaeologist, or the Smithsonian or something, and get this tested." And it's like, no, I won't do that. I'm like, and I said, because I already know what it is. I don't need an archaeologist or an anthropologist coming in here to tell me what I already have. And I'm certainly not going to send it to them, because if I did, I mean, how would I get it back if it it could get lost or damaged, or they could make up a false report. So I would like to say I trust them, but I don't.
Okay, thanks for that opinion. And I'll pass it to you.
Okay.
I'm going to pass it to John. I have to. I'm going to take a quick little break here to something to drink. So you three carry on. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
There's an interesting story about the Smithsonian. In 1908, there was a researcher with the Smithsonian named G.E. Kincaid, and he was tasked with going to the Grand Canyon to do some research. So he's on a small boat, and he's in the Colorado River.
Right.
And he's going through a very remote part of the Grand Canyon that sees very little to no human activity to this day. And he happens upon some cave openings that he can actually physically climb to and enter. So he goes into these cave openings, and they're very deep into the wall of this ravine. And he happens upon a statue of Buddha that's made out of pure marble. And the Buddha is sitting in a lotus position with lotus flowers in each hand. And then in the same area, he finds an Egyptian-style mummy. And he's finding this completely fascinating because of the cross-pollination and cross-cultural significance of finding a Buddhist artifact and an Egyptian artifact in the desert southwest of the United States. So he makes it to Phoenix, and he telegraphs the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian sends another researcher named Jordan. And after that, G.E. Kincaid was never heard from again. They never found his body. They don't know what happened to him. Nobody knows his whereabouts. And but supposedly, all those artifacts, and there was a whole lot more than I just mentioned, but they were removed, extracted from those caves, and taken to the Smithsonian, and now those entrances are completely and totally sealed. And then that part of the Grand Canyon, you can't explore it in any way. If you get near it, you'll get arrested. So,
yeah,
I mean, that
even
story,
today.
and that story goes back over 100 years. So, I mean, there's definitely something to what you just said.
Yeah, even today it is. It's roped off where nobody can go back there, and you can't do any flyovers that area either.
Oh, so no fly zone also.
Yeah, and there, I'm trying to think. It's in my book, Red-Haired Giants, but it's Susung or something like that was the Chinese name for North America, and travelers would come back to China and tell about North America, and people would laugh, thinking that they looked at it as a fictitious country, like what we think of Atlantis today. But I have antiquated maps of Chinese maps that actually have show North America and in the Grand Canyon area.
that's interesting. Those were maps
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Orontes Phineas map or the Piri Reis map that showed Antarctica before it was covered with ice.
Right.
That's pretty amazing. So apparently or supposedly there was some kind of polar shift or some kind of catastrophic event, perhaps with meteors, where Antarctica moved anywhere from 500 to 1,000 miles in a more hospitable location on the globe where it had lush green forests.
Right.
And it was mapped back then. And then also around that time, up in Siberia, they found mammoths that had undigested greens in their mouths and in their stomach, that some kind of flash frozen event occurred, like, immediately. Something catastrophic, maybe a polar shift or a meteor shower or something, for these, the mammoth to not even chew all of its food in its mouth and still have, green vegetation in its stomach. Something catastrophic happened. But they mapped these areas of the world, I would have to logically conclude, before all this happened, which takes us back, 14,000 some odd years. I'm not even sure. I'm guesstimating.
Well, it's probably a good guess.
Okay.
I think what happens a lot with people today is they're kind of judging how all the things that went on and how people traveled and where everything was based on what they see how Earth looks today. They're not taking into account that these plates have shifted and moved, because at one time during the days of Pangea, all these continents were one, just one large landmass, and then the waters went around it. And then, they started shifting and moving slowly and slowly and slowly until you see them all spread out today. But I think what's happening now that you're seeing is these plates are starting to slowly come back together again. It'll never be done in our lifetime, It could take 1 million years or even longer, but they're starting to slowly come back again.
I wanted to change it up on you and ask you about the haunted Burlington, Wisconsin. And do you think that being close to the Michigan Triangle has anything to do with it? Because where I live in Florida, I live off of the coast of about an hour from the coast of where the Bermuda Triangle touches the eastern coast of Florida. But in the last 20 years or so, the Michigan Triangle, also the Bridgewater Triangle up in New England, is seeing 2 to 3 to 5 times as much UFO activity, anomalous activity, ghost activity, unexplained Bigfoot activity, etc., than the Bermuda Triangle is now. I was curious if you thought the Michigan Triangle influencing that part of southern Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of study on that lately too, and I think that the original, or maybe the capital of Atlantis, was right up there in Nova Scotia, and that would be part of that triangulated area. And we do know that there was some huge meteorite strikes that hit up there, creating those lakes, up in Wisconsin and Michigan, Minnesota. And, there's a lot of strange activity, and it does come all the way on down, because Burlington sits, not that far, maybe it's a 20-minute drive to Lake Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So, and then, of course, the Great Shambhala line, you can trace, from the Himalayas where Shambhala is supposed to be. You can take that line and run it right through Burlington.
Oh, the latitude line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then the Great Native American line runs through there, so that makes a huge cross right there. And any time that you got these major lines coming together in the form of a cross where they can hit, they connect, like you take 2 battery cables, the ends of a battery cable, and you put it together, and you got that spark.
Yeah.
Well, you could about imagine the energy spark coming off two major ley lines coming together and touching. And that's what we got going on down in Burlington, creating this huge vortex. It's the strongest vortex I've ever seen in the world.
Well, that's why I brought that up. I just made an educated guess. It had to do something with it, and it just stands to reason that it does.
Yeah. But I'm thinking the more I look at that Nova Scotia area, the more I think that was probably like their capital, because Atlantis itself was a world trade. That's why they find it, like places, and they'll say, well, we found Atlantis in the Bimini Islands. We found Atlantis in Greece, and and the reason for it is just like how if something ever happened to our world right now, they're going to find Chinese stuff here and American stuff in Japan, because of world trade. And so, but they still had to have a capital. And I think that the capital city was right there in Nova Scotia. Because Scotia, in my book, Giants, Gods, and Lost Races, I showed that there was these the chapter's called The Blue Stones of E. And the blue stones were actually meteorite stones. And these stones, when somehow they were able to, has to do with something to do with vibration and frequency, that the ancient ones knew that we don't know today. And they were able to create, and like I said, I don't know exactly what type of ceremony, how they did it, but I do know that they used these blue stones or these meteorite stones to open up portals. And these portals, one was attached from Baghdad to Mars. And
wow. I believe that.
And I mean, these were major portals that they were using for travel. And during there was the Anunnaki were still here at that time. But anyhow, these stones, Enlil was so worried about these stones getting in the wrong hands that he actually sent these stones, called Blue Stones of E, to Ireland to be hid. And the person that took those stones was Princess E, and she was the daughter of Akhenaten. And her name was Scotia. And the name Scotia in those days meant portal.
Wow, Nova Scotia.
Uh-huh. And see, nova, when something happens, when a nova occurs, there's an implosion, right? And so I'm thinking that somebody knew that was the capital of Atlantis there, and they deliberately named that or gave that area land the name Nova Scotia because that was where the main Stargate was for the Atlanteans.
Oak Island.
And then when you start studying Nova Scotia is where they have that Money Island.
Yeah,
Money
Oak
Pit.
Island.
Yeah, Oak Island.
Off Oak Island. Mm-hmm.
And so
Figures.
I have to ask myself now that I know. And like I said, I have a whole chapter on it. It's called The Blue Stones of E. And but if you so knowing what I know about these meteorites and how they work with creating these portals or these stargates, I'm thinking that this money pit that everybody's dumping their money into, there may be another reason that people are up there. They're looking for something else. They're looking for that stargate. That's what I'm thinking.
Spoke when you started this, Mary, you said that where you were taking people to the woods was like a portal.
There's a lot of portals up there too. Yeah, And
Right.
I photograph people actually etherically leaving their bodies, and I'll be able to photograph their etheric body traveling through into these other dimensions and actually standing in these dimensions. My camera's actually got the ability to photograph people in the third dimension and other dimensions as well.
So I grew up in a like a portal, vortex, whatever you want to call it, because my house was haunted, and it was a nonstop, were they ghosts, were they ETs, interdimensionals, extraterrestrials, whatever, coming through my portal. And now I'm here in Maui, at the foothills of the West Maui Mountains, and this appears to be a portal as well. So there's a lot of, they call them the night walkers, and there's different ghosts.
I've heard about them.
And kind of scary,
Yeah, I've heard about them. And someone went there because they wanted to compare our woods to that particular area. And they actually got to see those night walkers. So I'm totally believe in the night walkers and that vortex area of Hawaii.
I journal in the morning. I woke up one morning and a woman came floating past my window. She was very long gray hair, almost to the ground, and then she kind of started floating up the mountain. But she was like about 2 feet from me, broad daylight, just walking right past my window. So this appears to be, it's just totally uncalled. This appears to be some kind of major portal. And I found out the original name of the mountain behind my house is called the Home of the Gods. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. And people have said that it's never, they can't seem to see it without clouds. There's always some kind of clouds at the top, and that's where they, ships are going.
Well, that makes sense.
I've seen them. Yeah, the Home of the Gods. So I don't think, I think that there's a lot of extraterrestrials, including Anunnaki and all kinds of different species that have always been here and they haven't gone anywhere, and they go to and from the planet, and they go in and out of the inner earth, and we're just this little, we're like cattle. It's like we don't stop and tell the sheep and the cattle what we're doing, and they don't bother to tell us because we're just
I mean, you have to think. You have to think, where did the word shepherd come from? The good shepherd. Who was it? Who was he? What shepherd? It kind of, you think a shepherd takes care of a flock of sheep or a herd of cattle or something. So shepherd to me is the people that are watching over us for these overlords that are coming in and out. And the thing is, I also believe, I just call them the invisible ones because there's so many different kinds. But, I've photographed these giants that you can't see, but you can catch them in the camera. And I photographed, the Cherokee talk about the Nanahae, invisible warriors that in need they come out of this veil. And they're totally physical, and do battle, for the who is ever in need, and then they step back through that veil and become invisible. And Ireland and that, they had their stories of the little people, the fairies, and I just believe that they're all around us, and they're but they're just invisible to us. But and they come, in all sizes, shapes, forms, different planets, other dimensions, from the inner earth. But somehow they have that ability that they can cloak themselves or stand inside those veils and never be seen by us.
We had a friend that tried to kill herself. She dug nose and went into the jungle to die. And the first time, popped out her stomach, and she survived. And we said, "What happened?" She said the Manehunis came up at night and kept her warm.
Yeah.
No,
You hear stories like that all the time. And there's
And
just
she was
too
supposed to
many
die.
of those stories out there for a person not to believe. And I think one of the main reasons people refuse to believe in this is because they're afraid of the unknown. They they found that little place of safety. They're familiar with it, and they just don't want to think about something else out there because it frightens them too much.
And there's also ridicule, fear of ridicule. I talked early about my contact and as a researcher, and for many, many years I just got ridiculed, and people wouldn't even talk to Janet because of her belief structure. Now that it's becoming popular, it's like everybody wants to talk to me. But back, 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But more people, I think there's more people that believe in it now than ever before. And,
I think so
too,
yes.
and then it depends, like I remember talking to this one UFO researcher, and he said that, he would lose his job as a speaker if he had to go to some of these Eastern countries and talk about trying to prove to them that there was UFOs. Because they all believe that there's UFOs. They've seen them. That's enough for them. They see it. Okay, I've seen it. I know what it is. You don't need to come over here from the United States to tell me that there's UFOs. But, and you're sure not going to go to Ireland or Scotland or any of those places and try to convince them of the little people. It's just really right here in the United States that if you can't see it, taste it, it's just not there.
Well, I think that's a lot of the programming we get, though, because this is kind of the seat of the, the seat of government, or the perceived government rotates over time. It was Rome at one point, and then it went to the UK, and then we have all this stuff here, and it's probably going to shift to China or something next. But wherever the seat of power that appears to be the ruling party of the planet, they get the most bombardment of disinformation and propaganda.
Right.
Just like Hitler did during his time. So it's shifted to here, and we have all this propaganda, and we get Fox News and, all this stuff. I just tell people, if you really want to wake up, turn off all the media. Just start paying attention
I
to
do.
yourself.
I turned that off years ago because that is all that is anymore is propaganda.
That's all it is.
There's no, and they deliberately lie anymore.
They do.
It's just like, are you serious? That is a lie, and it's just like they have no problem with lying.
No problem with lying. Karen's back. She had dropped off, and she's back. Karen, are you okay? Where are you?
Oh, yeah, I found the visible trap door, and I'm back. I want to kind of turn the conversation because of the project I'm doing with John Polk, who had, I'll let him have a minute to recap the story, but I'm editing his book, and we're right in the middle of this story. And then I found your website, and I just read everything you had on this. And I'm going to get this stick to John, but it's the story of a visitation at a UFO conference by blue people. Now, I've actually had a etheric experience with blue people. I've seen them and had interaction with them. But this was an actual physical one that was witnessed by quite a few people. And I just wanted to give you guys a chance to talk about that case and get your thoughts. So go ahead, John, if you can recap that story, that'd be great.
Okay, so August 28th of last year, I was the opening speaker at Experiencers Speak 4 conference in Portland, Maine, not far from the Bridgewater Triangle. And Audrey Starborn-Hewins asked me to be the opening speaker because I'm an international metaphysical minister, Reiki master instructor, and I'm just a totally spiritual person, and she knew that I would take that approach and create an atmosphere and a vibe that would be conducive to the supernatural. So I decide I'm going to do a seance. I've got 79 people in there, and probably 70 of them are experiencers, contactees, UFO witnesses, if not just straight up abductees. So I'm going to use their collective energy in a seance to see if I can lure benevolent, light-working ET and or angels into our congregation. So I have everybody hold hands. I conduct a seance, doing a breathing regimen, clearing our chakras through a chimney sweep, and I tell everybody that ET is in the room with us right now, whether we realize it or not. They're just vibrating at a higher frequency than we are,
Right.
but they are in the room, and that I actually, and I can do this, I can see into these other dimensions quite easily, and I can teach people how to do it. And I said before the conclusion of this conference, somebody's going to see something. Somebody who's never seen anything will see something for the first time, or somebody that walks in both worlds like all of us on the panel do today will see something unlike they've never seen before. So day one expires. Day two is coming around. Travis Walton is the keynote speaker. And, you know, these conferences, which I'm sure you do all the time, they're usually late, you know. They're always behind schedule because speakers are so good, and just the timetable always gets bumped back. So it's about a half an hour late, and these four beings walk in the door. Two of them had blue skin, and they came up to me first and asked if I was the one that they paid to see Travis Walton. And I said, no, let me find Audrey. I find her twin sister, who in turn finds Audrey. And then Audrey, we had just dimmed the lights because Travis is promoting his new DVD. And we're about to watch it. And so Audrey can't really see them or their money, so she pulls them into the light, and she realized that two of the four have blue skin. And then now I'm going to have to use a disclaimer here. I never saw them walk up to Travis Walton. I never saw them. I don't have any evidence that they did, but Audrey Hewins has said on multiple radio shows, and I've been on radio shows with her, where she said that Travis actually interacted with them. And then they come, you know, they say whatever they say to Travis, and they come and they sit down, and they're sitting down pretty much right in front of me. And then after the whole presentation of the DVD and the question and answer, they come up to me out of 150 people now being on the second day and start talking to me. More specifically, the oldest one, who I'll call Don, and he was very dark blue complected, like a Mediterranean blue. And another one who was complected was more of a dark sky blue. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but then there was two others. One was 5 foot tall, bald head with a Fu Manchu beard, tight-fitting sunglasses on, didn't say a word. And there was another one who looked like ancient alien astronaut theorist Jason Martell. I mean, he looked pretty much just like, except he had huge black eyes with no white in his eyes whatsoever, just big, black, empty, dispassionate spheres in his head. And he ended up coming up to me, and he said to me, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki. And it put me into some kind of trance. And right around this time, there's probably 20 people surrounding us. And this other guy named Keith Andrews, who we've had on Aquarian Radio, walked up to him and said, are you from the Pleiades? And he said, yes, I'm a shifter, and I'm a healer. And he started talking to everybody. This blue Pleiadian starts talking to everybody. And then the one next to him, the other blue-skinned person, comes up or says to him, hey, we got to go. We have to go. We have to go. And out of all of us there, only one person was able to get a picture, and that was Keith. And anyway, I remember shaking his hand. I remember looking into his eyes, but I couldn't tell you what his eyes looked like. And I remember the moment that he could feel me telepathically thinking, oh my God, he has blue skin. I'm sitting here talking and touching an extraterrestrial. And that's pretty much the time when the Jason Martell looking individual came up to me and did that trigger effect by saying the Anunnaki 3 or 4 times, and I blacked out. And funny, a lot of us witnesses out of 20 say that we blacked out also. But anyway, that happened. I'm writing a book about it, and I'm right in the middle of it, and actually I'm near the conclusion of it. But after reading your research about the blue beings, and then couple that with Karen Patrick's research partner and life partner, Brett Collins Shepard, I've got all kinds of new research that I really need to include in this book. So I'm so glad we had you on the show, and the timing is everything. I learned so much just by reading your website, and I'm fascinated. But so let me roll that into a question. Linking the blue people to the fallen angels and the elves. So I'm sure you can do that for us.
To link them, there. If you go back into H.P. Blavatsky's work, are you familiar with her work at all?
I've heard of her. I can't profess to say I know a whole lot.
Yeah, it's H.P. Blavatsky. She was a mystic from Poland, and
Madame, is that Madame Blavatsky?
Yeah, Madame Blavatsky.
Oh, because Einstein would read her books at night before he went to bed. I mean, he'd study and research all day, and then he'd read her books in his bed before he went to sleep. Okay, so yes, I have.
Hitler did too.
Well, imagine that.
Yeah. Well, one thing you can say about Hitler is he believed in it, and he had the resources to go out and find all this material. He wasn't a good guy, but still. But if you go back into H.P. Blavatsky's work, she talks about one of the first races of people that was here were blue-skinned. And they evolved to the point where they left this world to other planets. And they're and I've heard, that the Palladians are blue-skinned, and I know that we have blue-skinned people living in these other dimensional worlds. Because we've got several, portals up there in the woods, and they, you go through the portals into these kingdoms, and the people are all blue-skinned. And if you go back into into the Vedics, the Mahabharata, go back into the Far Eastern literature, you find that most of their gods were painted blue. Like Krishna was blue. So I think that we have more than enough evidence out there to prove that these blue people actually do exist. I know that one thing that they can do is they, because I've seen this happen. I've photographed aliens before, and I've actually seen this happen. What they do is they take so everything's got molecules, right? And so what they'll do, well, including your body, is molecular. But like a lot of the aliens, what they'll do is they'll spin these molecules all around them and get them spinning, and they use their mind to do it. It's kind of like how you do Reiki. And they use their mind, and they start pulling these molecules in, and then they start spinning them around themselves, trying to make like a cocoon. But these molecules are spinning so fast that it goes past our spectrum of vision, because our eyes can only pick up things in front of us at a certain speed. And if it goes faster than that spectrum of our vision, then it all becomes invisible to us. So what they can do is actually come in, and like in your case, they could actually, well, not in your case because they actually walked in, but they can also disappear by just taking that, spinning those molecules around them, and getting those molecules so fast that it looks to everybody that they just disappeared, but they're actually standing inside that cloak. I call it a cloak of invisibility. Does that make
interesting
sense
that you say it does. It's interesting that you say that, because Keith said that one of the witnesses, who he will not tell me who it is, but he told me that somebody saw them dematerialize in the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically, just dematerialize like on Star Trek, beam me up, Scott.
Yep. And they can do that too. And that's because our body in itself is nothing but atomic, right? It's all molecular. And so that's what happens, like when you have like if you're in a vortex area, because it's so high energy that it heats up the molecules inside the body. It heats up the molecules of the etheric body that's in the physical body, but it heats it up to the point where they start speeding up so fast that they start to separate. And the physical body can no longer hold that etheric body in, and the etheric body will just kind of step right out of the physical body and go into the other dimensions. And that's what happens up in the woods. And that's how we get a picture of the physical body plus all their bodies in all the other dimensions.
Wow, that's fascinating. Passing stick. I'm throwing it out there.
I'll take it. I don't know. Is Janet there? Hello.
Yes, I
okay,
put it on mute, and my phone kind of goes into passive mode, and it takes me a second to get the mute button back on. But we are running out of time here. We don't have much time, so let's start doing like a closing round and wrapping it up a little bit and gearing down. But we still have 19 minutes, but we can quit any time we feel like we're at the end of this show. So,
well,
back to you, Karen.
What I would like for everybody to do, if you're interested in my work, is to go to that Facebook /groups/Mary Sutherland, because I'm using that like a virtual classroom. So all the things that we're discussing in here, you can find more of that type of work and my opinions in that group.
Oh, that's excellent. I was sitting here after you said Madame Blavatsky. I'm now going to have to look all that up, because she talked about root races, the early races, and I guess that's where she was coming from, and dug quite deep into those stories. I want to go ahead and what triggered me to get you on the show was, and I don't know how much time we can go with it, but it was a secret. About 2 weeks ago on the weekend, I went ahead and with Janet and Sasha and others, we talked about the Anunnaki, and I did a presentation, the Anunnaki and the Moon, tying in the information I've been getting working with Ken Johnston and Brett Shepard, as some of the listeners know about. But I shared that I did have an Anunnaki contact that called himself an ancestor, and he gave me the name Godesh, and the same day or the day after I did this conference, you did an article about Kadesh, and those names are all very similar. I looked up, I found a list of the different variants of the name, and that really caught my attention, because it was, I was finding different things about it, but you had come up with a secret society connection, and if you could just mention that, you just make my day.
Okay. What I did is I found my old notes on this, and I'm going to share it on that group yet tonight, hopefully, either tonight or tomorrow night, where I was able to tie in the 30-degree Mason with the Hokadesh. And but anyhow, the Hokadesh, the first time I had heard the name Hokadesh was, or even Kadesh, was how was I? Oh, I know how it was. I had was researching the early Indians of Burlington, and they said that when they first got to Burlington, there was a group of people that had lived there, and they were white-skinned, red-haired giants, and the Indians were told that their names was Hokadesh. Well, Hu naturally is, like a color, right? But Kadesh, though, and I knew it to be true, because Kadesh is not an Indian term. They would have never known that name. Actually, it's a Brahmin name.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Hebrew, but yeah, it's more to it than that.
Well, Hebrew is kind of a form of Brahmin. You don't hear so much about Brahmin, but okay. Here's a good example. I'm hoping everybody's familiar with anagrams. You know, where you take a word and you take a letter and you take the letter and you put it in the middle of the word, or you put it behind the word, or you can take the G and change it to an H. But it still has the same meaning. Okay? So with the word Abraham, there's your Hebrew connection, right? So with Abraham, that actually is a Brahmin anagram.
Well, that makes sense.
Because if you take the A from the front of Abraham, the father of all nations, right? You take the beginning A and you move it to the end, you have Brahma. Meaning that Abraham came from he came from a sector of Brahmins. And the river that goes through Burlington, which I always thought it's now called the Fox River, but prior to having it being called Fox River, it was called the Pishtaka River. And I always thought that was Indian as well. And then I found out that Pishtaka is a Brahmin term for rice. And when Lewis and Clark came through here, they had made notations about the huge rice fields, you know, on this Pishtaka River and how they had to cut through them in order to just get, you know, to navigate it. But so then I also took Kadash, and I was able to connect Kadash to the Battle of Kadesh with who was it? That was it Akhenaten? Oh my gosh! It was between Egypt and the Hittites.
Was it Osiris? Was that possible?
No.
Okay.
I'm thinking it was Akhenaten, but it wasn't. But anyhow, it was the big battle of Kadesh between the Egyptians and the Hittites. And so I'm thinking, well, how would the Indians have known about the battle of Kadesh, you know, which they wouldn't have. And so then I started studying more on this Kadesh because now, you know, it's got me really curious. And so anyhow, I found out that the meaning Kadesh meant holy ones. And it took me all the way back to the first Ark of the Covenant, which was not the one that Moses had. The first Ark of the Covenant was given to the people by the Anunnaki as a covenant that they would forever watch over them and that there'd always be peace between them.
When I got that name, I didn't know anything about it, and now you're blowing my mind.
Oh,
it's amazing.
It's in my books. I think I have it. Yeah, I think it's in my book, The Red-Haired Giants. But yeah, curious. Kadesh means and Hu is Hawaiian for the first man.
Oh wow.
Oh, Hu.
So that's where you get the Hu. I was thinking it was color, but it's not. It's Hu means it's the term that Hawaiian term for the first man. But here's Hu, like Hu.
Hu.
Oh, wow.
Isn't part of that like?
And then Kadesh can be spelled H. It can be Kadesh, or it can go Kodesh. Because see, the Egyptians, how they used to do it is everything was consonants. There was no vowels. And then all vowels could actually be interchangeable in our language.
So, I know it's confusing.
An O is an I, is a U. But
yeah. Go ahead. Well, I was wondering what tribe it was.
And then the Templars, they picked up the old Templars that you have that were killed or tried to be exterminated by the Pope, Friday the 13th. Those Templars eventually adapted the name of Kadesh. And from there, it went into the Masonic terminology. And
yeah, that's
and also,
what I read.
it's also, I think, in order to be a Kadesh, you have to be 30. I think it's 30-degree Mason. And at that point in time, there's all this different knowledge given to you. It's like Jesus Christ was, he would have been a 30-degree Mason if that's how you would look at it,
Depending on what knowledge he was using.
He that's the type of knowledge he would have been given. It would have been the knowledge of Christ. Because at that 30-degree, I think that's where, when you receive your Kadash knighthood, because they call them the Kadesh Knights, I believe, the Knight of the Kadesh or something like that, like not night like day and night, but night as soldier. Yeah.
Right.
And, but so the word Kadesh actually takes you all the way back to the first Ark of the Covenant. And it's kind of a hidden name.
Which is amazing that I knew it because it just came right out. I just learned it.
Well,
and
it just came right out. Well,
it.
you know that it was meant for, somebody gave you that, one of the invisible ones, something put it into your head. And then through synchronicity, they showed you my work.
I know. I was blown away. Which tribe was the one that said that story? Which native tribe?
Well, let's see. It would have been, who would have been up there? It would have been, Wisconsin tribes. That would have been the Sioux. I might have to, I can't think of it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. There's a lot of them, so I don't blame you, sure. But we'll be looking for it when you get it. We'll look for it when you post it on your group, which I'm already a member of, and I'm learning a lot. It's wonderful. So thank you so much.
Okay, no problem.
Good. Okay. Well, we're running out of time, so John, how about what's your final question or comment?
Real quick question. Mary, if you could tell us quickly about the Blue Movians. I'm curious to know a little more.
The Blue Movians. I think, oh, gosh. I know I wrote about them. Well, they're the Blue Movians. They are your blue people, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go, I think that if you went to, burlingtonnews.net /blue people.
Yes, that's where I'm right now.
Do I have something written there on the Blue Movians?
I can read it. What you said is that they fit the description of the biblical angels, described as very tall, thin, extremely large heads. They possessed all manners of powers of the mind, teleportation, telekinesis, and ESP.
Okay, thank you. I write so much. It's like my website's like New York. I tell everybody it's like New York City. I actually have my own search engine, which is really nice because anybody that goes to burlingtonnews.net, any topic that they want to, all they have that I have written, all they have to do is go into the search engine. There's a little box there, like a little search engine box, and you just type in a topic. Click it, and it'll pull up pages after pages after pages of everything I've written. So, and you'll spend years on that site. Trust me.
Well, I have. I mean, years all wrapped up in the last 4 hours of my life.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. But I'll pass the stick because I know we're almost done.
Well, yeah, thank you for gathering all that information and putting it in one place. I know what that takes. It's a lot of work, but it's a
Well,
labor of love. People, yeah.
I have been posting on. No, this is the truth. I have been posting on creating my website ever since the internet first started. Just to give you an idea how many pages there are, and it would be like a daily thing.
So what
So,
year?
like I said, it's like New York City. You need a map to get around.
What year? About
oh
what
my
year
God!
Was that?
Oh God! I don't know when the.
96, 7 or 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 90s.
Well, actually, I lied to you because I think that I started my websites. I was on the websites doing other things. I had a radio show and things like that, too. I think I started my BurlingtonNews.net site about 2000. 2001 or 2000.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Blue People is copywritten in 2004.
Okay.
And your information is gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna plagiarize, but man, am I gonna use a lot of this research in my book?
I have always told people, because people always contact me wanting to know if they can use something, and I've always told everybody, that they can use anything I've got just as long as they give me credit for it.
Oh, thank God!
So,
you just saved me like 20 hours of work.
And
so.
I use most of the stuff that I have out there, I do try to show my references of where, because I focus on, I try not to find things on the internet so much. I try to find my information through legend, lore, lost books out of print, taking it back to the Mahabharata, the ancient Vedic text.
That's smart.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, when I write my books, people are getting information that they haven't seen before.
So, Mary, with your permission, can Karen and I use this in my next book, and of course give you and put all the links to every single thing we can possibly find on you in the book, also.
Sure. Yep. You're more than welcome to.
You're beautiful.
I was told, by the invisible ones, I'm just going to go with that term, my guardian, whatever. They said that they would always share information with me as long as I kept that information going, that I never hoarded it, that I always shared it. And they told me if I ever quit sharing, then they'd cease giving me the information.
Well,
I've always shared.
Well, and
Wonderful.
We will go out of our way to give you full credit for absolutely everything that is included.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, how could I do anything else?
Well, there's been a few writers out there that have. So.
Well, that's not our style.
That happens, so that just kind of goes with the territory.
Well, I'm excited about that, Karen.
We are running out of time, so final words, everybody. Got about 2 minutes. Karen, you want to say bye?
Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you so much for your really amazing resource, Mary. And I've been enjoying posting the groups. And thanks for giving me more information on that Kadash thing. I'm going to be continuing. I've been given like a keyword. I've got to keep going.
It really is a keyword. It really is. I agree with you.
So I'm going to keep looking at it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and for all your listeners, I really would like for all of you to join my group. It's facebook.com/groups/Mary Sutherland. And then that way, when you guys got questions, all you have to do is make a comment, and I'm right there. I'll answer it, and I'll help you with your research, because that's why I designed that group. It's like a study group.
Well, I already clicked join, so
I know you did. And I'll get working trying to get that more straightened out on the Kadash, because it really is some information, wonderful information. I know I have it in my other book, so what I'll just do is kind of cut and paste out of my notes too. But I'll get as much information as I can on Kadash, and then how it fits in with the Templars and the Masons and Christ and the Ark of the Covenant And the Battle of Kadesh.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to thank you, Mary, for coming on our show. We'll have to have you back again. That went fast. I told you sometimes 2 hours just flies by. So thank you very much for coming on the show. And we will see you, everybody, again on Aquarian Radio on next Thursday. Sunday is, what do we call it? Divine Paradigm. No, that's Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio. And we are expecting a hurricane. So if we get a hurricane here, Karen's going to take over and do the show on Sunday on Revolution Radio. And Tuesday we do a show on KCOR Radio. And that's about it for today. Much love and blessings and aloha.
Bye now. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Why is my music not playing?
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.